it's just all feels so like intentional and purposeful in
intentional.
a
And I
way.
feel like that's where like our Pisces rising, like that's when we do our little Pisces rising thing and we're like, we're all connected and we're all God's children.
Literally.
Hey everybody, welcome to As Above.
So below.
Thank you for tuning into our first episode. So we're just gonna start off with, more in-depth intros into who we are. And some of the information might be repeated from the trailer, but it's okay. So as a reminder, I'm Toni. I use she, her pronouns, and I am from Gaithersburg, Maryland, but I currently reside in Elizabeth, New Jersey. I just moved to Elizabeth, so that's what I had to remember. I am a Pisces rising, Taurus sun, Libra moon. And we also wanted to let y'all know like what our life stage is, which is open to interpretation for the both of us. So I'll just go and start with I'm 24. I graduated in 2020. I've been living in Jersey ever since graduation and working in New York, whether virtually or now in person. Yeah, I turned 24 in May, and so I'm in my first house year. I'm in my Jupiter year. I have a lot of high hopes for this year. I feel like it's definitely been a good it's been a good start so far. I guess I'm only into like month 4. But yeah, I'm really excited for what's to come. I think when Jupiter entered Pisces, that actually was very influential for me. Mostly on a spiritual level and like I think coming out of my 12th house year at the same time that Jupiter was in Pisces was really like magical. That transformation of like being in kind of like a darker sort of hidden place to like, having a little bit more knowledge and like Jupiter coming to like, you know, release me from Saturn, basically.
From the shackles.
Literally the shackles of Saturn. So yeah, I'm feeling pretty good. Um, yeah, I just moved into a new apartment and, just adjusting to life. I feel like I'm always, as Pisces rising, I'm just always changing, always evolving.
Literally.
And so, it's a constant sort of thing of like figuring out what I need, what the me now needs in this moment, and trying to figure out healthy ways to meet that.
Yes.
Mhm.
Period.
Oh, and then as far as a little bit about like my approach to astrology, neither of us are professional practicing astrologers. We are astrology enthusiasts, for sure, and I we both use tropical astrology, and then I use whole sign house systems. And yeah, I tend to like learn and listen to a lot of traditional astrologers. And like I tend to abide by like traditional rulerships. However, since like I'm not a practicing astrologer, I'm very open to like pretty much anything, even sidereal astrology. There's some topics there that I, really enjoy. And then when it comes to like modern astrology, like I still can kind of incorporate that. But yeah, that's a little bit about how I do astrology.
Period. That's Tony. Hi everyone. I'm Silver. My pronouns are she, they. I'm also Pisces rising, so it's not surprising that this podcast is being started. I'm a Sagittarius sun and a Taurus moon. I am from Rockville, Maryland, and I reside in Rockville, Maryland at the moment. Um, a little bit about where I am in my life. I'm 23 years old. I am definitely moving through my 12th house perfection year. Yeah, it's been a journey. Um, I've struggled a lot with things like, I don't know, like, I guess like substances to cope, and not in like a really crazy way, but just like that's definitely like a pattern I've noticed that is a 12th house thing. And then like as in like I've been drinking a lot. I'm 23, and like I like and like smoking and like stuff like that for sure. But I've definitely gone to a place where I can recognize that and reflect on it, and I feel like I've just learned a lot about my unconscious behaviors in this year and facing parts of myself that I've kept hidden not only from myself but from like people I love, like shadow parts probably because my 12th house is also ruled by Saturn. So there have been lessons that I have not wanted to learn, but I have. So yeah, that's kind of where I am at spiritually, mentally. Um on that end. And as for the kind of astrology I use, I also use tropical astrology. I sometimes like dabble in sidereal because it like is just fascinating to me, but um I just like enjoy to, yeah, like Tony said, like um try a bunch of different perspectives and see what fits me the most. Unlike Tony, however, I use Placidus housing just because that's what I'm used to and what I know, and I feel more comfortable and familiar with it. But you know, here and there, I'll look into Whole House astrology because she's a big fan, and she definitely like helps me view how I can interpret that in a different way. So that's really cool. But yeah, so Tony and I are best friends from high school, actually. Tony was the valedictorian of our school. I'm just kidding. The Hall of
Oh,
Famer.
wait. Wait, did we meet when how old were we? Were we 16? Was I 15 or 16?
I think it was my sophomore year, so you were probably 15 or 16. We're probably around the same age. I think I was like 15, probably.
Yeah.
So that's
So we're coming
crazy.
up on like 9 years of
Yeah, that's
friendship.
wild. Yeah,
Wow.
so she was a year older than me, and I don't know, for some reason we definitely like really resonated with each other and we became really close. It's definitely the sun moon conjunction, you know?
Mhm.
And as we grew like up and started exploring parts of ourselves and our spirituality, um, we realized we were definitely like in similar stages. Also, we're both Pisces rising, so there would be a lot of things that we would be experiencing around the same time, and we'd be like, "Hello, like, is this real?"
Yeah.
um, so yeah, so this podcast has definitely been years in the making. It's not something that we abruptly decided. Um, we definitely have been talking about doing something like this for a long time. So it's a really exciting journey that I feel really grateful to share with Tony and with you all in general. So yeah.
Yeah, same. I'm like thinking back to the first I'm kinda like I can't remember the first time we saw each other or but I do think it's important to note, like, we met each other through, a
Yes,
production of
yes.
I would say High School Musical, Hairspray,
Of hairspray, yes.
right, in which the Tony Award winning, actor, Miles Frost, played.
Period. Yeah, he played
So,
seaweed.
we acted alongside a Tony Award winning Broadway
The
star.
name drop.
Yeah, this
Just so
is
you
in no
know,
way this is in no way paid for, supported, not brought to
not
you by
sponsored.
no sponsorships. We don't got sponsorships, but, yeah, and I feel like just because while you're talking about it, I think it would be important to, just lean into the nostalgia a little bit. I definitely feel like when I met Silver, I, like, was just it just felt, like, so natural, like, I feel like our friendship has always just felt like we're supposed to be friends, like,
Yeah,
it
definitely.
never, which is why it's kinda hard to pinpoint, like, when did it start, because it's literally
Yes.
just, like I mean, we met through, I think a mutual friend initially, and then we were both in Hairspray, but as far as, like, it just always, like, you're the yin to my yang, like, we're
It's
just
always been us, and we've had, thirds, like, here and there, but we've
yeah,
had unicorns.
we brought in thirds here and there, but
But at the end of the day, it's us, you know what I mean?
yeah,
Um
and I think
I
during
actually remember exactly when I met you. Like I remember where we were. We were in the like science wing. We were like at the stairs, and our friend was like, "Oh, this is Tony. This is Silver," and I was like, "Oh my gosh, like hi!" Like because I was friends with that girl from like classes. We had a lot of classes together, and we became pretty close. And then she introduced me to Tony, and um, yeah, like we kind of just like grew from there. We definitely like stuck around each other. Um, I got to know Tony's beautiful grandmother and
And I got to
raised
know
her and
Silver's
stuff.
beautiful mother.
Yeah, and yeah, we just like we were in a school that was very much predominantly white, so I think that for me that was also a huge thing. Is like, whoa, like I have black friends, like people who see
Oh
me,
Lord, not
like
me being a token.
'cause we were literally so traumatized at our school, but we won't get into that. Like,
I mean, yeah, we were, but we didn't even know it. That's kind of like the scary part. At least
exactly,
I didn't know it for a point.
I definitely didn't know it.
I remember when I realized it like senior year, and I was like, oh shit, like I need
Like,
to get out.
this isn't okay,
I was
literally.
like, this is
Yeah. Like the craziest things. And then when Tony left and I was just me, I was like, oh shit. Like I literally like I didn't really have like my own like friends that were black in my grade. So like, you know, I had like acquaintances, I had cool people I was cool with, but like we weren't like as close as my relationship with like Tony, for example. So then there were crazy things happening, like fully like someone wrote a newspaper article at our school about whether or not it was okay. It was an op-ed, mind you, about whether or not it was okay to say the N-word. And they literally had a whole yes column. It was a debate.
bruh, like
So that's just one example of the crazy shit we
yeah, for all
endured.
y'all
I
listening,
definitely.
we were that school. Like, you know those schools you see on social media that
Hmm.
like yeah, we were that school and that's like
Yeah.
so freaking crazy to think about because I mean, I feel like for most people, especially if you grow up in like predominantly white spaces, like your coming to your senses is a little bit delayed in the sense that like
Definitely.
you've been just surrounded by like whiteness and white supremacy is just so normalized around you so it's
Mhm.
like the process for of awakening is is like a little bit slower than
Yeah.
other people
And
but
on
I
top of
think
that,
that
in like,
go ahead,
sorry,
what are you
continue.
gonna say?
I was gonna say in like a socioeconomic light, also our school is very affluent and like we were very much like like they just like had no concept of
Right,
the fact that they were of their privilege in so many ways when it came to like resources and just like life in general. So that was
exactly.
always like really weird. And that was something that we navigated through, or at least I navigated as well. And like it was just
Right.
really weird.
Yeah, I mean, I think we were navigating for a while. Like for me, at least, I know navigating it without the actual language for what you're
Exactly,
experiencing
definitely.
is really tough because it's like I know some shit is fucked up here, but I don't know like
Yeah,
how, so I can't even
exactly.
really get into it. But I think that we also graduated in a very pivotal moment, like in the country, which
Mhm.
definitely I think showed everybody's true colors for real. Like
Definitely.
I mean,
Definitely.
I'm not gonna I feel like even though I went to, like, that school and it was probably white, like, I was also raised in, like, a Black household, like, I had exposure to a lot of other things, so I already knew, like, you know, shit was fucked up.
Yeah.
But as far as, like, the overt, like, sort of, like, that newspaper thing happening, like, that
Mhm.
happened after I graduated, so I wasn't, there to experience it, but
Mhm.
I can imagine how, like, you can't you gotta prepare yourself for shit like that. Like,
I feel like you
that's a
said,
shock
we
to the body.
literally, yeah, exactly. Like you said, like I feel like it's something that we didn't have the language for, but it was very much something that our bodies felt. And we were like, hello. Like, I don't know, at least for myself, like I feel like there was so much that I went through or experienced that like my body knew was just like weird stuff, like was not cool. But so I would have like, you know, like kind of like physiological like effects or consequences, I guess, to that those experiences. But like as I got older, I was like, oh, like this is what that was. Like this is racial trauma, like in some
Mhm.
ways, like whatever. So
So we
yeah.
trauma bonded.
Yeah, yeah, that's really what this is
I mean
actually.
no, I mean, yeah, so, yeah, that's that, but I think, to bring it back to the friendship, I think that that was a huge reason why it's so special for us, and I think that when we eventually discovered our birth charts, that, like, was, like, all the confirmation we needed, like, "Oh my god, we're both Pisces," like, I remember that conversation,
Yes.
and also, like, with the knowledge now that Pisces risings are actually, like, very rare. So
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, like, look at these
Of
2 little
course, we're both
squishies
so
that
rare.
find each other and, become best friends. Literally, like, our synastry, I feel like, just speaks to the idea that, um, we're just meant to be friends,
Yeah.
meant to be
And
talking to y'all in this moment.
we're blessed to have met each other and to have like experienced that kind of stuff together and like grown together as people. And now here we are, 23, 24, starting our podcast.
Literally, like, we've come so far from
Yeah.
those little people we were.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so I don't know, is there anything else that we wanna cover in terms of, like, our relationship or get to
I
next.
think that's a good start. And then we can also get into our get to know you questions, which I think will answer kind of certain like aspects maybe. We'll get into
Yeah.
as we go.
Yeah, so Silver and I each prepared a few questions that we're gonna ask each other. So like I'll ask my questions and then Silver will ask those same questions back to me, and then Silver will ask their questions and vice versa. And this is gonna be a great way for y'all listeners to hopefully we have listeners to know more about us. Um, and also just a good way for us to like talk with each other because ultimately this podcast will be a platform for conversations that Silver and I are just typically having
Oh,
anyways. So it's
yeah.
like I'm looking forward to this because I just like to, always learn more about Silver and how they think.
Me too, baby. My question was like, what would you say personally propelled your interest in astrology as a whole?
Yeah. That is a long question. I mean, a long answer for me. But I would say I think, astrology aside, I've always felt very connected to like God. I was raised Christian. I wasn't raised in like a household where I had to, go to church every Sunday or anything. But I was raised by my grandmother. And, when she did go to church, being the Libra moon that I am, I was like, I can't say no. Like I have to, no,
I'm a
literally,
good person.
I just can't say no. Like, and yeah, like it just felt like, why would I not go to church with my grandma? And I think it wasn't like I disliked my experience in church. I mean, admittedly, there were many services where I would sleep. But but the services when I was awake, I felt very like, okay, this feels resonant. This feels important. There was a feeling of, and I think when you go into any sort of spiritual space where you have like prayer warriors, you have people who like do that shit, like
Hmm.
you can feel it, or at least I could feel it. And
Yeah.
I didn't, again, I don't think I had like language for it, but I definitely felt very moved by like what I was experiencing, and I felt inclined to speak with God and like pray and that kind of stuff. And I think my grandma really encouraged that, not from a very strict perspective, but more so like it's good to cultivate a relationship with God, and that can look however you want it to look, and it can be deeply personal, and you don't have to be at church for it to happen. And so I feel like that foundation for me like always made me feel very connected to the divine. And then when it comes to astrology, I don't know, I from an early age, I think I just started to look at anything that I encountered as like God. Like like, or just feeling like I think my grandma very much instilled in me that like, God speaks to you in so many kinds of ways, whether it's, sending someone down the street and like,
Hmm.
or maybe you're grocery shopping and you come across this. So I was taught to kind of look for signs to be like, oh, like here's God trying to communicate with me.
Yeah.
And so I think astrology just kind of very much fit within that, existing relationship that I had. But I do remember when I was like, I think I had to be like 10 or 11 years old. And I came across like this book that had like a bunch of like, I mean, all birthdays in it. It had all of like 365 days in a year.
Hmm.
And it was like, it would go into detail about like, if you're born on this date, this is the type of person you
Yeah.
are, this is what you might struggle with. Da, da,
I've seen that
da.
book. Yeah.
Yeah. So like, um, so I came across that book, and I don't even think the book, like, it wasn't based in like a astrological frame, or like they probably leaned into astrology, but they didn't even use astrological terms or anything.
Mhm.
It really just made it seem like if
Mhm.
you're born on this day, this is how you're gonna act. And
Yeah.
it didn't specify year. It was just like everybody born on this day. So very like surface thing. But I remember
Definitely.
reading it and I was just like, oh, like I just remember being very curious. I think I definitely like resonated with some things I don't even think I knew yet because I was like 10 or 11. So like,
Mhm.
there's only so much you can really know at that age. But I
Yeah,
was there
definitely.
trying to learn to figure out, like I think I've always just been curious about like myself. Why am I here? And like, who am
Mhm.
I?
That's
And I
so
feel like
fun.
astrology, along with a lot of other things like, those personality tests or like whatever, they kind of help to, answer some of those questions. And
Mhm.
I've always just been really interested in those. I loved AP Psych in high school. Um, and so, I read that book when I was 10 or 11. And then, astrology has been in pop culture for a while. So I knew like my sun sign. I knew that, Tauruses were stubborn. That was really the main thing that I always like read about, us being stubborn, and that wasn't like the nicest quality. So I kind of like didn't like it. I was kind of like, "Ah, okay, I guess," but I still kind of fed into it. Like I have screenshots on my phone from like 2012, 2013 of like those Tumblr posts where like they describe,
Yeah.
how the signs react to different things and stuff. So clearly I was intrigued whether it super resonated with me or not. Like it was just something that I thought was like fun and like, oh, this is interesting. I was never like super like skeptical, but I also wasn't like, oh, this is like legit, legit. It was more so like, okay, this
Mhm.
more stuff I can kind of just gather about myself or, see if it resonates. And then in 2018, I remember, I don't know what I came across that made me look into this, but something made me look into my moon sign. So I calculated, I put in my birth information and I found out I was Libra moon. And that was definitely the first time I remember because I was like on a trip in Utah with my brother and my grandma and my sister. And I was literally like telling them, I was like, oh my God, y'all, like I'm a Libra moon. Like, I was like, this all
I
resonates.
found myself.
No, literally, like it just felt so validating. Whereas, like, I don't think I had that experience for Taurus, but I also don't think I looked too deeply into being a Taurus sun because everybody knows their sun sign. So I feel like they just like latch on to whatever sort of stereotype exists, right? So I hadn't really looked into my Taurus sun that much, but I did know the Libra moon shit like really hit for me. And so that was like an important moment in my astrological journey where it's like, okay, I'm starting to see, just how well something can relate to you. 2019 comes, I'm listening to podcasts, not astrology podcasts, just like regular podcasts. And these girls start talking about, they have an astrologer as a guest on their show. And they talk about like birth charts. And like, I don't know if I just hadn't heard of that term before, but I think it was the first time like that I ever knew that was a thing. And so they talk about this. I'm like, okay, let me go to Cafe Astrology and put in this information. And when you look up your birth chart on Cafe Astrology, it gives you like this long ass like
Mhm.
report of like all of your placement and goes into the houses. Um, and it even goes into, I think, aspects and stuff. Like it gives you a
Yeah.
very full report of like, you know, what's going on. And so I do recommend it as an introduction kind of if you have the patience and are interested in reading about it, just because I don't know, I feel like can you think of another resource that is that like thorough in terms of just giving you information all in one place
Yeah.
about your whole chart?
Not normally for free. I feel like if there are other
Right.
websites you like they charge or like obviously astrologers and such, but
Right. Yeah. I mean, you can go to an astrologer, and I think that obviously, if you have the resources and you really want to dive right in, then
yeah.
you can do that too. But if you like are more so curious, and if you have tourist placements, you don't like spending money all the time like that. That might be a good, just introduction. Just introduction. Don't take it and run with it forever. If you really want to learn more, I would, learn
Mhm.
more about it. But so I read that and it was definitely resonating throughout. It was a lot. It was a lot to take in, but I was a sponge kind of like I just wanted to know more. Even if like I think early on in my like journey of learning more about astrology, I realized that like you can't try to just like expect everything to stick, right? Like that's why it's important to just reread, relearn. Like so like, you know, even like when it comes to basic concepts, like my approach is like I'll whatever sticks will stick and whatever doesn't I'll read again at another point and it'll stick at another
Mhm.
point, like so there's going to be more to learn. Like it's such a rich and multimodal sort of language, so it's like you can't, it's easy to get overwhelmed, but like this is where I think the God part for me comes in, where it's like whatever's supposed to resonate is going to resonate and that'll stick with
Mhm.
you and you'll take it into the next phase of wherever you're going. So I was overwhelmed, but I was excited. I was like, okay, this is cool. Like I looked up my boyfriend's chart and I was like, I don't know, this doesn't seem like him. But yeah, and so what was the question?
What you said propelled your interest into astrology.
Yes, I feel like I answered a lot of more questions than just that question, but I think that kind of is a testament to what propels it. I just
Yeah.
love it as a medium, as a language, as a system of understanding the world, of developing more compassion. Like I've always loved learning more about myself and those around me, and this has just been such a like foundational sort of um interest in terms of like helping me to cultivate that, helping me to be more introspective. And yeah, like I just love this shit. And like I really can't tell you a sign. Like I feel like I used to be like,
Mhm.
or if you ask, like I might say like, people always have the sign that they hate on, like, Geminis, people hate Scorpios, like there's those signs. And I think I like used to, kind of jump on the bandwagon. Yeah, like I don't like Geminis because I met one Gemini that I didn't like in high school. But like that, even when I would say stuff like that, like I didn't really believe it. Like I didn't care that much. And then the more I learned about astrology, like the more compassion, like the more I just started to see each sign for like this beautiful like offering to the world. And like I really can't even tell you a sign that I dislike because we have it all in our birth charts anyway.
Exactly.
So it's like disliking, a sign is like, disliking some area of your life. And now do I know like there might be signs that I might not be as compatible with? I recognize like areas where, a certain sign might have characteristics that are hard for me to accept or hard for me to like navigate, but like it's not about that sign in general, it's more so about like how it's interacting with me. And then also,
Mhm.
people have personalities and like some signs
Yeah.
just just
And it's
manifest.
also, I feel like it's very much affected by the stages of your life, where you're at, and like where that person's at, and if you guys are compatible in that sense, for sure,
Right, exactly.
So yeah, that
Yeah.
definitely like influences it. But yeah, that was like, that's a very beautiful like story of how you came to be here hosting astrology influenced podcast. Um, I what was I was gonna say, like, as for the thing like of like you were saying like that, like I feel like that's very much the case, like over time you get to a point where you're like, actually I embody all of these signs, like whether or
Mhm.
not I like this, like I embody like these traits, these characteristics in different aspects of my life. And so that very much forces you to like take a look and be like, why do I like feel so triggered? And then it's also like most relationships that you decide to have or choose to have trigger you in some way, shape, or form. And I feel like that's where my spirituality comes into, because it's like, okay, like God placed you in my life for a reason. I
Mhm.
may not like this like aspect of you or this characteristic, but it's like there's definitely a lesson to be learned here. And that's just
Mhm.
how I feel like I view a lot of astrology and relationships with people in general.
Yeah.
So, but like you said, you've said this before, like I definitely am still the type to like be like, oh, like cancer. Like But I say that like in very much like a joking way where like I can also recognize their strengths and like, like I think that there's a lot that I can learn from cancers. I just like would rather keep them a little far away from me. I'm just kidding.
From a distance. Yeah. Cool. So I would love to know more about your um motivations, I guess, for getting into astrology. What propelled you?
Okay. Yeah, so I guess I'll like start with my spirituality too. So I grew up in a Catholic household, which has its qualms for sure, especially as a queer person. Um, I think that a lot of the basis of Catholicism is like rooted in fear, honestly. And like I feel like while yes, like there's definitely beautiful aspects and like in faith and in believing in something greater than you and believing that like there's a plan, like which is the stuff that stuck with me. Like you said, I very much take what resonates, leave what doesn't. Like so that's very much what I did with my religion. When I was little, I used to like pray every night, like, but it was kind of out of fear, less so out of, I mean, in some aspects it was out of love for sure, but it was definitely like, I was like, if I don't pray, I'm going to hell. Like
Okay.
that's very much like what was like
I mean, but
instilled.
that's the message. That's literally
Exactly. And I had to do like Catholic school, like CCD, like and stuff like that. And for me it was in Spanish. That was also another like barrier of like not feeling like I could really like I guess understand the capacity of it, because I was also like not that like I can understand Spanish perfectly, but it's like when it comes to like religious texts and stuff, I'm like, what does that word mean? Like, what are you talking about even? Like, so I think that that definitely distanced me from um Catholicism. And as I grew up in general, and as I started to come into more of like my sexuality and during dealing with things like that, it became a little bit harder for me to like I guess like believe in Catholicism. But for me, like I feel like as into my teenage years, I was just like, what even is God? Like what? Nah, I'm just here. Like it was very much like it was not like I didn't necessarily stop believing in God, but it was definitely like a on the back burner. Like it wasn't something that I was gonna like live my life in fear of, you know? Um and like eventually like I didn't pray as much and things like that, but it was like I still believed in God in my head. Like I believed that there was something greater than us and that we weren't just here randomly, and that there was like but then I think that for me, um I think astrology has been a great tool in my healing journey, in like learning about myself and just growing as a person. So I think that something that kind of propelled my journey into it was very much like feeling like I was at a low point and like I wanted to get out of that and have some like faith, some sort of like restoration when it came to my relationship with God and things like that. And like I knew I was a Sagittarius. I was like, oh, I'm an explorer. I like learning. I like teaching, like things like that. That's kind of the extent of what I knew. And I was like, we're fun. We're a good time. We're fire signs. Like, and then I remember one time I was like using my sister's laptop, and she had gone. My sister is a Scorpio, so she is very much in there. She was in the like astrology like
she was born there.
minds. Yeah, she was born there, very much so. So she had gone actually like a birth chart reading from an astrologer, and I remember like seeing it or coming up against like across it and being like, whoa, this is so cool. Like it's really telling her about herself. Like I was like, that's so interesting. And then that kind of like, yeah, like propelled that for me. And then when I went away to college, I went to school in New York for my first year, and I was very much around a lot of queer people. Once again, a very like astrology is huge in the queer community, specifically like lesbians and like whatever. Like we love ourselves some astrology. Like so it was like it was something that we all talked about, but at that level it was also kind of still surface. Like it was like big three. And it's like I knew like more, but that was I remember that was when it started, like when I started like my interest in it started. But at the time I thought it was a Virgo rising. Imagine. First of all, where is the productivity? Where is the, like, where is the discipline? Like what? That's so funny. But yeah, I thought it was a Virgo
Wait,
rising.
so how long did you think you were a Virgo rising?
I think like that whole year. And then I came home. When I came home and like moved here, I saw like my birth certificate and I was like, this is a completely different time. Like, and I looked it up and then I was a Pisces rising. And I was like, damn, like that's the complete opposite. But at the same time,
Did your moon change or was it was the
no,
same?
no, my moon was the
Okay.
same. I thought I was a Sagittarius, Taurus sun, Taurus moon, Virgo rising. But I was a Pisces rising. But as we'll get into throughout this season, we're also going to talk about like the similarities between these like these oppositions or whatever. So at the same time, I think there were things that like didn't really change in some ways. In the way I like was viewing myself. But yeah, like after that, I was just like in a really like low point emotionally. I'm just like a super sensitive person. So these be happening often clearly because I literally am like, I was just really down bad. But yeah, I was definitely in that space. And I think learning more about astrology and about my personal birth chart just kind of like it was like a way of me learning about myself, like the good qualities of myself that I feel like at that time were probably hard to see for me, but at the same time, things about myself that I could definitely like use to grow or to
Mhm.
like become a better version of myself. Which is always something that I really love about astrology, and I still do. Like I find it therapeutic, like kind of like reading myself and being like, damn, like yeah, this ugly trait is coming out, like, and it's not out of nowhere. It's because of this. It's always been so fun for me. Like I'm that kind of person too that takes like those personality quizzes, like love language quizzes and stuff like that. Like I just love to know more about myself because I think that it helps me obviously like show up for myself in the way that for myself in the way that I need and the way
Yourselves.
that I
There's
yeah.
a few of y'all in there. No, but
So
that's real. That's real.
yeah, so I feel like that was always really cool for me and it was something that I was super interested in, and at that point it was very much like a priority. Like I think like thinking back to like high school when I knew my Sag son, I would see like tweets about things. Like there would always be like tweets about like sun signs and stuff. And I would rep that shit to the death. Like I was literally like, I'm a fucking Sagittarius. I like loved that. Like, and I would always think it was so cool until I started to see like, the not so good stuff. And I was like, no, that's not me. Like, what are you talking about?
Yes, and I
I
think
don't claim them anymore.
it's important to add that you are a solar chart, so you're born during the daytime. And
Exactly.
so I think that's such a, interesting representation of someone born during the day, like resonating more with their sun versus like
Hmm.
resonating a lot with my moon.
Exactly. Yeah. Um, I definitely I feel like when I was the younger I was, the more I resonated with that. I still definitely resonate with my Sag. Obviously, I'm a Sagittarian. Regardless, it's everywhere. But
Can't get away
I
from
feel like I also have been able to kind of tap more into different placements, like my Taurus moon and Pisces rising, as I've gotten older, and just like yeah. So it was definitely like a way of me kind of like learning about myself and using that as a tool of like healing and developing my relationship with God and like my spirituality in general. And like you said, like using it to kind of receive messages from the divine or from God. And like, like I've always just like looked for guidance. I feel like that's very sad. Like I'm like, I need a direction, I need a sense of direction. So I feel like astrology definitely fulfills me in that way where I feel like it kind of like shows me the best version of myself that I could be.
it.
And that's just what I strive for now. So yeah, I think that is probably how I got into like being who I am now. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that what you are mentioning about using it as a way to heal is so important. Like I feel like I don't know, it's just helpful to have, you know, some sort of resource that puts things into perspective a little bit and allows you to just feel like one, like knowing that bad times don't last always, right? Like having a reminder of that and like
Yeah.
knowing that timing, like, things happen in cycles and, it's okay to have
It's
a
all
cycle.
temporary
Right,
in
right.
our life.
There might be a period time. Yes, life is temporary.
It is.
I'm gonna be dead soon anyways.
It is.
Um, but like being able to just have something else to consult to like, you know, yeah, get answers. Like I think healing is something that astrology has been helpful for me as well. I don't even think I've, looked at it specifically as healing, but I think that's what it ultimately was because it was like me searching for, answers and trying to understand, how I'm reacting to different things in my life. And I think having language is like such an important, step in healing. So
Mhm.
I think that was really powerful. Okay. So my question to Silver is, what's one of your placements you've grown to better understand or love?
Okay, okay. Um, yeah, I think that I know the answer to that one. I think it would be between two placements, which are my more passive placements, but I'm going to go with the Pisces rising, surprisingly, because I love that placement now. Like, I mean, obviously, we're very much like, Pisces. Like, literally, people be saying that they're Pisces, and I'm like, me too. Like,
No, literally
knowing
same.
damn well they don't know about big threes or like chart
No, they
trades.
don't. And I'm like, listen, I'm a
Like,
Pisces.
you
I'm
don't get
more
it. I'm a
Pisces than
Pisces
you.
too.
But
But yeah, I think that kind of towards the beginning of my journey with astrology, I very much like I've always been one to keep feelings to myself and kind of like, I don't know, like um I guess let it fester over time and stuff. And like I didn't really understand that I was a very sensitive person. I am a very sensitive person. Um and so like when things would happen that would like bring that out of me, I just felt so uncomfortable with that, like with the sensitivity, and like I viewed that as like a weakness in the past. And because I'm a Sagittarius with like a Sagittarius stellium and a Taurus moon, so it would be like, whoa, like I felt like the Pisces kind of like watered down who I was or who I could be. Um, but as I get older, I definitely see it so much differently. Like I think that there's way more strength in vulnerability than in like being hard and being tough or whatever.
Mhm.
So that's something that I'm definitely like learning to balance, is that like sense of like being vulnerable and being okay with being vulnerable and being sensitive and being okay with being sensitive, because I think that at times that gets blurred, like, and it makes it hard for me to really like understand who, like what I'm feeling versus like what I'm picking up from everyone else, like, or whatever. So I that's something that I've like learned to, yeah, like to love and to find strength in. It's a placement that, and like we wouldn't have this podcast if I wasn't like, I mean, maybe we would. I'm a Sagittarius, but
We're
like
not gonna
in
talk.
certain ways, I think it's contributed so much to my like mental well-being and like understanding things that I need to feel myself and to feel like being spirituality or astrology and things like that. Our relationship with God in general. And I feel like when you're young, you're just like, what's that? So yeah, I would say my Pisces rising is one that I learned to love and understand better. Um, yeah, I love it here now. So
Yeah, I think what you said is like so important and thinking about, and you can let me know if this is true for you, but maybe you have a placement that doesn't necessarily resonate with you in the beginning, but like it might also challenge you to think more about like, okay, does Pisces rising mean that I'm just gonna be a crybaby all the time? Or like, I'm just like, no, not necessarily. Like, there's so many ways that can manifest. And like, there's so much strength and power in Pisces through its vulnerability for sure. And I think through, when people say sensitive, I think it's like an automatic negative connotation of
mhm.
like, oh, that means like, you're not strong. But like, sensitive also could just mean that you sense things like,
Yeah,
like you
as
feel
simple
shit.
as that.
Right, like, you feel a lot of things that are going on around you and being able to, like, be in conversation with energies that are not, that are more than just like the
Yeah.
material what's in front of you. Like, and that's so
Mhm.
powerful. Like, that's literally a superpower.
Yeah, definitely. And it's like it's like another level of intelligence that may not be, like um praised within our society for sure. But it definitely is, yeah.
Yeah. And also just to, give a little glimpse into my reaction to me being a Pisces rising, it just felt like the world made sense. I was literally like Tinkerbell. Like I literally felt like I've been crowned. Like literally
Yes.
watch out. Like literally, I hate when I'm around Pisces and they don't acknowledge that I am the Pisces of the group. Like I did not ask for their permission to be a part of that community. I just came as soon as I found out I was a Pisces rising because,
Mhm.
you know,
Because we are
we
Pisces.
are. And
Like,
I mean, admittedly, like, I think when I first found out, I also had a lot of, like, Pisces people that I either liked or admired, like Rihanna and my brother, and so when I found out they were I mean, when I found out I was a Pisces rising, I was like, "Oh, they're Pisces, like, I'm in good company, like, this is where I'm supposed to be, like,
yeah,
let me get in position."
yeah. We get in position.
I was ready, I was like, "Come on, Jupiter, what we about to do?" Like, not even Jupiter ruled it at that point, but yeah. And I guess, like,
Yeah.
how was it for you when you realized that, like, Sag and Pisces are ruled by Jupiter? Was that like did that feel like super like full circle, like, wow?
Um, I think that so like I don't know when I realized that, but I think that the first thing that I thought of was like how the first person that I ever like really liked, the first girl I ever liked was a Pisces, and how like she kind of embodied a lot of like kind of Sag traits, but she wasn't a Sag, and I was like, what do you mean? Like I was like, I don't trust you. Like
Yeah.
um but yeah, like when I like learned that, I was like, oh, like we have so much in common, yet we do it so differently for sure. And like learning about that, like learning more about that, learning about our ruling planet of Jupiter and such, like was like really eye opening for me as a person, like how like I can be optimistic or indulgent or like things like that. But it's like, like I feel like the Pisces adds to that such a level of like delusion. It's just like me fully like head in the clouds, like living on the moon. But I feel like when I'm in, like the best space of like mentally, emotionally, I also feel like my Taurus moon can ground that and um I feel like I find a good balance with it, but it freaked me out because that's like just so much like when I would read about it, it would be like overindulgence and blah, blah and I'd be like
Mhm,
gluttony and I'm like, oh my God.
mhm,
But
mhm.
like that's very much like that is a problem that I can like have, like things like that. So
Mhm.
yeah, it was interesting to learn for sure.
I feel like with your Sag stellium and Pisces rising, like you're just like a pool of wisdom that like needs to be tapped into because like
Like,
just so much knowledge. I mean, yeah, and obviously it can get to be, too much for your own good. You can be
yeah.
too wise for your own
It's
good,
I
but
have the knowledge, I just need to, work on the consensual
right,
nature
yeah,
around
you just gotta
sharing
work
it.
on the Saturn part, there's Saturn knowledge
Yeah,
and Jupiter knowledge.
yeah, the limits to it, yeah, for
Right.
sure.
Cool. So one of my placements I've grown to better understand, and this is a work in progress for sure. But it's definitely my Venus in Aries. So I remember when I read about having Venus in Aries. This was before I like knew anything about planetary rulerships or anything like that. So I was reading it and it was just like the description was just it just was too much for me. Like it just sounded so terrible. And I was like, but like it is kind of true. Like it does resonate with me, but like I hated that it resonated because I was just like,
Yeah,
these are the parts of myself that I really am not a fan of. And yeah, it was just a lot. And I think that as a Taurus sun, Libra moon, Pisces rising, like my big three, the things that I feel like are, sort of ordering a lot of my character and my life, um, is around like it's very relation oriented. It's very like pleasant interactions. It's very like kumbaya, compassion, and stuff like
Illusion.
that. And then like this Aries Venus comes in like bold as fuck, like literally destroying relationships, just walking chaos. And that was very alarming to me. So then, of course, when I found out that like Venus in Aries is Venus in its detriment, I was like, oh, like, duh, like, this is clearly not what Venus is supposed to be doing. So it was a lot for me. I remember I tweeted one time, I was like, we need to start an Aries Venus support group. I was really stressed out about that Aries Venus. And I think I think that, it's just like the Taurus in me that's just like, bro, what's going on? Like, that's a lot.
Yeah.
But I feel like as I've learned more about astrology and as I've gotten more into just myself and, learning more about life, like astrology has been, for the past like 3 years, I would say, mostly more so 2 years, but maybe 2.5. Astrology has just been a language through which I'm like helping to better understand myself, people around me, events, situations, whatever. And so it's definitely pushed me to like think more, expansively about all of the signs, including Aries. Like, me 2019, 2020 would probably be like, oh yeah, Aries, like ill, like it's just too much, like just crazy.
Just absolute chaos.
Like just doing too much. And now it's like realizing like one Aries, one I think thinking about it through the rulerships, right? So Aries is ruled by Mars and it's the sun exalts in Aries. So like thinking about what are the qualities of Mars and the sun, like being creative, being an individual, knowing that like you are you and feeling like just like sustained by yourself, like just having
Confident.
like a self presence that's just like a force, literally like a force. Very pioneering. Like there's so many, you know, elements to each of the signs. And for Aries, I think having Venus in Aries and learning to better understand that has meant me, recognizing that when it comes to like relationships and stuff, like, maybe I won't go about it in like the, Korean, Libra way that's super like, oh, harmonious love, da da da. Like I might need some independence. I might need some like freedom to let my light shine in the way that it needs to shine because that's what Aries need. They need freedom
Mhm.
to like be them. And recognizing like the value of that in relationships and what that can add in terms of like showing other people the freedom within themselves and like being able to be passionate and like be excited about like love and relationships because it's not all just like you know burn it
Yeah,
down. Like like sometimes like
it's
my love it
beautiful.
burns. It burns within me, and I feel like that's in a lot of ways what love is supposed to do. And I think um as I've learned more, as I've like gotten other interpretations with people who have Aries Venus, I'm low-key starting to like love it a little bit, but like from a distance. Like, I have to still kind of like most times I think on a day-to-day basis that my Libra moon Aries Venus opposition is like what I have to keep in check because I feel like especially because it's an opposition that involves the moon on a day-to-day basis, like I feel it. Like I feel a constant sort of battle between, this planet of desire, right? And needs and like how do I balance those 2?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Period. Yeah. I feel like, first of all, Aries Venus is so beautiful to me. While yes, it can be chaotic as a Sag Venus, I like love the passion. I love that they're so certain of themselves. Like, I love that they're aware of their needs and they honor them. And then I feel like at the same time, also, there's definitely the level of chaos or destruction or whatever. But it's like, um, I feel like with you, like having a Libra moon makes you really conscious of that. And it's not your initial instinct and
Mhm.
it helps you like kind of like balance that. So I don't think that I've ever felt like, whoa, like so like chaotic, like but it's like obviously there's different versions of relationships. So I don't know.
Yeah, and I feel
So
like
that like manifests.
your Sag Venus probably also, helps make that easier for you because you can,
Yeah,
um,
totally. My
but yeah,
chaotic
it
guide.
comes out in different ways. I think a lot of it, in whole sign, like, my moon is in my 8th house, like, a lot of I feel like my Venus is in my 2nd. A lot of it I feel is kind of internal, and I feel like with those houses, those aren't typically things that are gonna be most visible to everyone, like, they can be a little bit more hidden, so,
Yeah.
yeah.
All right, so Tone, you've been in a relationship for like 5 years now. Crazy. So how would you say your astrology knowledge and your just like evolved spirituality and journey through your spirituality as a whole has influenced your relationship and has it helped at all?
Mhm. Um, it's definitely influenced it. I think, like, the first sort of my first encounter with my birth chart, like I said, it was kind of overwhelming, so when I did immediately look up Josh's chart. Josh is my boyfriend, um, but it was a lot, and I was like I was already trying to take in the stuff about me, so I had to put him on the back burner a little bit. So, like, I generally knew his placements, but I definitely didn't have them remembered yet, but I was still trying to, like, process myself, and, you know, for more context, I do have an Aries stellium, so there is a lot of me talk and me think in terms of how I approach the world.
And Taurus sun, let's talk about it.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, and so, I think that I spent a lot of time trying to digest mine, but when after I was starting to just also learn more about, what do these planets even mean? Because it's like, it's not like you can understand your birth chart, but like in order to really, I think, level up your astrology, you have to kind of, think about the planets more objectively, not just how it's situated in your chart, but like, where is it in the sky right now? How does it manifest in other placements? And so, as I started to learn more about that, I started to dig more into my partner's chart. And yeah, it's just such a crazy experience because it's so different from like how it felt reading my chart versus his. Because his chart, so he's a Pisces sun, Leo rising, Capricorn moon. I think the Capricorn moon made sense for me in a lot of ways. Like that wasn't, a curveball or anything, but he has a Pisces stellium. And so I'm in my head like, why is he not crying every day? Like, why does he like there needs to be he needs to let out the depth of emotion that he has. And obviously this was sort of a early on understanding of what it means to, be a Pisces. And also really like, realizing just how important his Capricorn moon is and where it's situated in his chart and his stellium, because he's a Leo rising in whole sign, that stellium occurs in his 8th house. So like that might, show up a little bit differently than it would if it was in like his 10th house or like something more visible. Um, so I think that I've been getting more acquainted. It's a journey, like I'm still in it, getting acquainted with his chart. But I think through that process, it's just been helpful for me to, realize like how he is approaching relationships. What are the things that he needs when it comes to, romantic relationships or just relationships in general. As well as, I mean, it's kind of like you have a little guide on a whole nother person. So it's like, obviously you should use it responsibly and with, people's consent. Don't just like, don't, I mean, I've done it before and I'm not proud of it, but, but you shouldn't.
But it's also like if you have the chart, like and the person doesn't quite understand the information you can get from it. It's like, is it really like that bad? Because they gave it to you, you know?
Yeah, no, I think if they gave it to you, it's fine. I think sometimes people can take information that they learn about someone through, whatever sort of tool of divination or whatever. And sometimes like just be cognizant of where you might be projecting things that are not there, or like, you're seeing a part of them, but they have parts of them that you might not even, see or like know.
Yeah,
So
in
like
them.
giving everybody like the respect and credit of like they're full human beings, like they're not just their chart. um but yeah, but as far as how it's been helpful in our relationship, I think that it through the introspection for me, it's allowed me to better show up and also identify like habits and different like patterns that I know I can slip into. And I think for me, like obviously you can be introspective, you can do these things without astrology, but I think, and this I think goes back to my Libra moon too. Like for me, it's good. It's helpful for me to get distance from my emotions sometimes because in whole sign, my moon falls in my eighth house. I think emotions can just feel like super all consuming for me sometimes. Like it's just like I am anger, like I am sadness, I am happiness. Like it's
Mhm.
like all of it, it's like extreme. And so at the same time, I think that astrology gives me some distance to be like, you're reading about your emotions. Like, okay, like this is how you're acting right now. This might be how you tend to act. And it doesn't feel quite as like burdensome or like urgent. It's more so just like, this is just what it is. This is an emotion. Like, this is okay. And so having astrology as like this tool to be like, okay, this is that I might be acting selfish in my relationship, at this point, or I might have a tendency to be selfish. This Aries, having Venus in Aries supports that sort of explanation as well, and being able to like consult and be like, okay, how can I reel it in, or how can I tap into other parts of my chart to like have more compassion, like, or to just see things from a different perspective. And I think that's what air signs really do. Like they give perspective typically. And having astrology as sort of my go-to or sort of handbook of like, okay, what's happening? And it's not like any feeling I'm feeling and like what's happening in astrology. Like, I mean, sometimes it's kind of like that,
I'm
but
like that.
but it's not like that. At the end of the day, like I'm gonna feel the emotion because I'm just an emotional person. But I do think when it comes to like building my relationship with Josh and like how and figuring out ways to just set ourselves up for success, it's definitely given me a useful sort of just guide in terms of like what are some things I can do better, what are some things that what are some transits that might be impacting how I'm feeling, and just letting it be that and not necessarily, going down a rabbit hole of like I'm not a good person and da, 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 like don't let the placements like take you down to an extreme.
Mhm.
Avoid extremes always.
Yeah.
Um And then as far as learning more about him, it's like, learning what are the things that bring him joy? What are the things that, or like I know what brings him joy because I'm in a relationship with him, but what about that brings him joy? Like kind of, thinking more um just about ways to understand a person and like appreciating how many layers, he has, and realizing, where our layers might connect. What are the things that might have drawn us together, like our synastry. And um, even though I still am trying to crack the code of like him being a Pisces stellium, because it's really like he is a case in which his sidereal chart, which sidereal astrology is just like, you know, I don't know if I can go into a quick
Yeah.
view of it, but if you don't know what it is, I encourage you to look it up. But as far as timing goes, usually they're like behind. So like if you are a Taurus sun, you might change to an Aries sun. But if you are a late Taurus sun, you might still be a Taurus sun, which means real Taurus, like but so for him, like he becomes an Aquarius stellium, which makes a whole lot more sense in terms of knowing who he is. Um, but there's more to know about Pisces, and I am a learner, so I'm gonna figure
Mhm.
it out. It'll it's gonna, and I think it has started to make sense. And also as you get to know a person, your relationship with the person evolves, and you get to know different elements to them.
Mhm.
Some people like start to tap into like, everybody's just on a journey, and so the characteristics that they have at one point in their life, might look different or
Yeah.
probably will look different at another point
Yeah.
in their life.
Hopefully will.
Hopefully they're evolving.
Exactly.
So yeah, but I think it's been a fun tool, and I think that, as even in my friendships, even in, work relationships, that's one thing I've been interested lately, like seeing if I can know their rising sign, what personality are they bringing to work, like your sixth house, like knowing that my sixth house is Leo in whole sign, so like, in the work I shine. But
You're a
yeah,
leader.
I'm a leader. Um, yeah, it's been really cool. That's a good question.
Yeah, that's
So I would like to, pass it back to you. How has
okay.
astrology influenced the romantic relationships that you've had and or like other relationships?
Yeah. I think for me, astrology is a very big tool, and I can sometimes get a little obsessive when it comes to it because, let's say, okay, referencing whole house astrology. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Um, I am a Pisces rising, so that means that I am a Virgo descendant, and I think it helps me to kind of rationalize and like understand someone in a romantic relationship or just like partnerships in general. Um, I like to have like kind of like data, like to like analyze. Like I think astrology has definitely given me like verbiage for how I understand myself and like for how to express that with like a partner or in a romantic relationship. I think I'm able to be like, yeah, this is what I'm like. And I'm working on this part, but this part's kind of cool, or like whatever. Um, and it also like I feel like it helps a lot knowing like Venus signs and like understanding how you show up in love and how you need to be loved, knowing your moon sign and stuff. Like if I have access to someone's chart, it's over. Like I literally be like, wait, what? Like I feel like that's also maybe the Pisces rising is like wanting to merge and like I don't even know, like be what they want, which is not healthy always, but sometimes it can be really helpful. To show up how they need or how they want. As for friendships and such, like I love to know how your mind works. I think I do have a tendency to want to help in that sense. And just like in general, like yeah, I just like I feel like it's fun for me. It's a good time. When people ask me though and I'm not feeling it, I'm like, I charge. But for the most part, if it's just for myself, I will like do that all the time, especially synastry charts. I'm very big on synastry charts. Um, I love to understand like where our planets fall in each other's houses and how that like will manifest in our relationship and just like better understanding our dynamic as a partnership as well as individually. Like I just like love doing it. But it definitely is also something that I want to like limit a little bit more and not just like automatically assume I know a person. At the end of the day, your environment and how you grew up and stuff definitely influences who you are as a person. It helps me be like compassionate, like empathetic to what I know is what they're going through. Also, when it comes to transits and understanding like what's happening that might not be affecting me, like you said, but like is maybe affecting you or that might show up for us in different ways. At the end of the day, this is all like very much like it's really fun, but it's also like I feel like I learn from and helps me sag expand and like within myself and within my relationships and like just make sure that I'm like always growing and evolving and that I'm not falling into the same patterns all the time within my relationships. And yeah.
Yeah, that's what makes it fun. Like
Yeah.
you need someone to act upon you in order for it to,
To
like
come out.
right,
See the
exactly. Like
different sides.
I forgot I saw on Twitter someone, I think it might have been People's Oracle, who is a sidereal astrologer. She's great, Dana. And I only know her for
You're like my bestie Dana.
Great, I don't know her. That's why it's the People's Oracle. But she was saying, and this is obviously for sidereal, but I think it applies how like people's chart, you should think of like when it comes to synastry and how another person's chart impacts you, you should think of it like a transit happening to you through the interaction with that person.
Yeah.
So like for Silver, whose moon is in Taurus, like that's like when the moon is in Taurus for me, like what does that mean?
What does that feel
And,
like for
that's
me?
that's my relationship with silver, or like the other Taurus moons in my life. But I think, recognizing how huge of an impact people can have on your life, and like the impact that you're having on theirs, and that's ultimately what it means to be in a
In a
relationship.
relationship. Yeah,
So
definitely. And it's so beautiful. Like it's just all feels so like intentional and purposeful. And
intentional,
I'm
and I
like,
feel like that's where like our Pisces rising, like that's when we do our little Pisces rising thing, and we're like, we're all connected and we're all God's children.
literally.
So my next question for you is, what is something about yourself that you're proud of?
Something about myself that I'm proud of. As in a placement or in general? Oh,
Take it
we're
how
talking
you
about life now.
yeah, listen, this is a full on like,
Okay. I feel like this is gonna get spiritual for me though, because that's who I
yeah,
am.
as it should. I'm always
Um, I think uh something in my life that I'm proud of is like my constant commitment to healing, and to like kind of coming into like ideally it's like I want to be the best version of myself, and I feel like that can sound kind of like harsh or like just like I don't know, but like it's like I also am trying to do that in a compassionate way where I understand that I'm not always going to show up in that way because that's life and I will have bad days and like bad relationships and bad times in general. But at the end of the day, it's more so like my commitment to that forever. Like that's what I always want to be doing. I always want to be growing and like learning and just doing better than I did before. So that's something that I think I really admire about myself. And while I don't know, I'm like I feel like sometimes I think I'm doing that and I'm not showing up in my relationships in that way that I'm like doing the work or whatever. So right now that's something that I'm kind of like in a space of wanting to work on as well as like showing up in the way that I know I can.
Mhm.
So like once again, just the commitment that like while that makes me feel really bad that I haven't in the past, it's like I want to do better now and I want to do that stuff now, whether it be like in my family and stuff and just in general, like knowing that I have the resources and the like knowledge to do this work for me is a really big deal because my parents didn't and like grew up in like third world countries and like in poverty and stuff, so that was kind of their priority. So I feel like being able to do this is like, it's not just healing myself, but it's like on a generational level. I think it's something that I really, yeah, I think I like any step that I feel like, wow, like I feel like I'm really doing really well in this aspect of myself, or I'm really growing in this way. I feel like every time something like that happens, I feel really proud because I'm like that was hard for my parents and grandparents and whatever to do at any point. It was never something that they actively strived for. So to be doing it um kind of like in honor of that and like in honor of myself and like it's just really like I don't know, it's healing too. But yeah, it's just I don't know. I feel like it's brave and that's something that I would say I'm proud of. Yeah.
Wow, that's so like meta. Like you're you're proud of your ability to heal, and it's like in doing that you're honoring, you know, your ancestors, your family, your heritage, and that in and of itself is another element of healing. You're healing. You're healing. I don't even know how to say it, but I hope it's making sense the way I'm saying it. Um,
I know what you're saying. Yeah.
yeah. Okay.
My
Let's
healing is healing.
yeah,
Like,
your healing is healing. Like
yeah.
literally. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. So what would you say is something that you're proud of in your life currently?
I'm like, your answer was so beautiful. I don't even know. No, it's difficult. I think that and we can talk more about this when we get into our first season about the axes, but I think Libra placements are very good at like creating space for other people, but like
Mm-hmm.
actually asserting yourself in a space is like, oh, this is a little bit
Yeah.
hard. And like I think when you think about the fact that the sun falls in Libra, like that's a, you know, important point where it's like you can see why it's uncomfortable for a spotlight to be on you. But as far as what I'm proud of, I am really proud of my ability to be present in my relationships. And like, I don't know, I think I do a great job of like creating space for the people in my life and
Absolutely.
like holding space for them and just like presence in my relationships, but also I can like when I'm at my best self, presence with life, like just
Mm-hmm.
being in a space like and fully embracing that moment. Like when I can do that, it makes me feel really good. I feel really connected. I feel like myself. Like that's what I'm supposed to do. And so I guess yeah, my presence and like my ability to like I don't know, sometimes I feel like I notice it more when I'm around people who don't have that. And I'm like, everybody seems so disconnected. Like you're not here. Like, why
Yeah.
aren't you here? Just be here. Like, let's be here together and experience. And
Yeah.
I'm always down to be other places. Like, you know, obviously you got my prices rising, like always be there too. But like even when I'm there, I'm still connected. Like
Yeah.
it's not like from like sometimes I feel like people are avoidant of presence. They're looking,
Mm-hmm.
they're just trying to escape. Like,
Yeah.
and I don't I don't escape. I don't want to escape. I want to be here like as much as possible.
That is beautiful. And that is definitely something to be proud of. Like as a Pisces rising, absolutely something to be proud of. Like
Yes,
I'm
yes.
an absolute escapist.
Yeah. I mean, and like,
Self-kindness.
yeah, like I have a tendency to that, and that's why I said like at my best self, like when I'm feeling good, then I can really give myself to a moment. And I think for Tauruses, I think like that important. And I think that's kind of why like they're seen as slow sometimes, or like we're one of the descriptions is like lazy or slow, but like we
Like slow
are in the
moving.
moment. We are like, yeah, we
Yeah.
are like taking in that moment. And so that's what it can look slow from the outside because everybody else trying to escape the moment. We in it. Like I'm gonna
Yeah.
feel good in this moment. I'm gonna take in every sensory aspect of this moment and like embody it kind of thing.
Yes, I love that description because absolutely, I feel like Tauruses are so like grounded and like yeah, they don't rush through anything. They don't do things that they don't want to do unless, you know, unless it's for someone they love and stuff. But like I really admire that about Tauruses and about you in general. And as for the like way you definitely make space for the people you love, like that's definitely something that I love about you. Like I feel like you always have that space for me when I like need it, or like you have like the wisest advice, or like things like that. Like you definitely you know how to show up for people in your life, and you know how to show up for yourself. Like you said, at your best self, probably, but it's definitely really admirable. So
Thank you.
okay, I also definitely wanted to have just a disclaimer because there were definitely points when I was answering this question that I was like, oh my God, I'm scared I'm gonna cry. So just so you know, I'm a crier. I be crying. I wouldn't be surprised if at any point throughout this season of our podcast, I just start crying. So don't be startled.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
very
You're
natural and I'm
definitely the
also
crier.
okay with it.
You're
Um,
definitely the crier. I feel like I definitely be crying. I don't cry in front of a lot of people though. So I probably well, but the thing is if I see people cry, then I start wanting to cry. So it will probably be a situation in which Silver starts us off and then I join in the crying fest. But
be
no,
yourself.
I can cry. Yeah, I'm sorry. I can't. I need to get another personality. That's like my own personality, but it's just easy to just take
No, you're
everybody
just so
else's.
empathetic for sure. So in wrapping up, I think a cool way to do it, let me know what you think, Tone, would be to I know that you've been listening a lot to the Beyonce album, the new Beyonce release. And while I don't think we can go through every sign, I was thinking maybe you could choose if you have it, like a song that you feel like represents Taurus and then Sagittarius, and then Pisces if you have one for that too. That'd be fun.
Okay. Oh wow. I was ready to do all the signs. Okay.
Oh, okay. You can
No,
do
we
too.
don't have to do all the signs.
Okay.
Okay, well, I'll start with those three, and then if there's any, because it was kind of hard for some of the signs, honestly. So,
Okay.
but let's start with those three, and then if I have a serious case for any, then
All right. I'm gonna listen to them after. I can't contribute to this conversation much because I've only listened a few times. Toni is obsessed with it, so I want to give her little spotlight and have her do this.
out there. Okay, she doesn't have to tell everybody.
Okay, just to be clear, she is not a part of the Beehive. She just really likes the album and some of her music.
Thank you, thank you. No, I mean, I love Beyonce. I think she's great. I feel like the Beehive is just pushing it. Like, I can't say that I identify with that group in particular. Only because I feel like, fans just be getting wild.
With that terrorist organization.
Yeah. Like, I cannot be affiliated. Okay, Taurus. Let's get into it, Taurus. My top contenders for that sign are Cozy,
yes.
Summer Renaissance. Now, I had a hard time choosing between the two. I think ultimately they're both Taurus, but but like Cozy, it speaks to some of the things that I think might come more readily for what Taurus represents. She's talking about being confident. She's talking about being comfortable, literally being cozy. That's like a Taurus word right there.
Yeah, like, exactly.
And there's at the beginning of the song, and I'm not even going to a Beyonce break. Beginning of the song, she says, damn, I love the burning of the dagger from the words that you say. Dancing in the mirror, kiss my scars because I love what they made. I didn't understand, after listening to this album so many times. But I think a couple of days ago, I started to realize what she's saying in the beginning. Like, she likes for you to come at her, like come at me. Like, this feels like she loves the burning of the dagger. Like at this point, she just embraces that shit. It's just like,
yeah, she knows who the fuck she is at that point,
right? Like, there's like that assurance that I don't think every Taurus has, and I think, or maybe, well, I think everybody has it, but like to cultivate it, it's hard. Like, I'm not saying there's not an insecure Taurus out there. I think Taurus is actually pretty insecure, but as an archetype, and that's typically how I talk about signs, right? The archetype of what it represents. It is security. Like, it is being confident in that you have what you need. You are abundance. You have this body that is worthy. Like, that's what it is supposed to represent. It's like after Aries, like, oh, I'm here, like, consciousness, like literally like spirits, like Taurus comes in and is like, and I have all these things, and I have this body, and I have like, and I think that Cozy like really speaks to that, like, and how intimidating that is too. And like, when someone doesn't want for anything, I think of Taurus as very like abundant. And, just like not needing external, like just needing you and your body. Like, and
I think that is definitely an evolved Taurus state, because I think
that's what I'm saying. Like, as an archetype, let me, like, when I say archetype, I just want to clarify, like, there's a lot of ways in which personalities take on this archetype, and maybe their approach to the archetype is now different because of other situations. So maybe you end up being greedy, or maybe you end up being like stingy, or maybe like there is
that need for external like possessions to feel
exactly. And then and feeling like you have to have everything instead of just knowing that everything is yours, like and being okay with that and not possessive over it, because you don't have to claim it. It's like
it is yours. And then also for the next part of the lyric that you shared, the part of like, I forget exactly what you said, but it was like about like thinking your scars are beautiful,
right? Kiss my scars because I love what they made.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like that really shows the like difference between a Libra Venusian and a Taurus Venusian, and how I feel like for Tauruses, it's like showing up as who you are, as like scars and all, flaws and all, is way more beautiful to them than like a superficial like beauty of like, wow, you look so good. It's like very much like, I love you for your natural state, like for who you are, the person, or like I love myself for my natural state. And so I feel like that also can go to like be another reason why that definitely sounds Taurus to me. Yeah.
It's very much that, like cozy
I
with
like that
like
one a
hands.
lot.
And then I'm trying to see, and she does go into, some material things. Um,
Mhm.
but Summer Renaissance was the other contender. And I think this speaks to some elements of some, and it's interesting how these songs speak to each other. That was another thing I was thinking about. But Summer Renaissance, sorry, I had to, I'm looking at the lyrics because I don't want to mess it up. Oh no,
Yeah.
we don't have the lyrics here. Hold on one second. That the way it starts is I wanna house you and make my I wanna house you.
I
Boom.
want to house you.
That's
Yeah.
it, Taurus. Let me give you a house. Um,
Yeah, that's so
it's
funny.
very much Taurus in love, maybe Taurus Venus, if you will.
Mhm.
I want to house you, make you take my name. I'm gonna spouse you, make you tat your ring. Okay, so this is off bat. Someone who
Wait, what was the last line?
I'm gonna spouse you and make you tat your ring.
Okay.
Yeah, it's very like, it's the possession. Like you are
Mhm.
mine. I want to have you. And
Mhm.
so it is kind of getting into that, a little bit shadow side, like
Yeah.
maybe you need to reel it in a little bit more. But let me see what else does she say that feels very. Oh, she says you a sweetie pie, come let me eat you. Now,
That's Taurus, all
gonna talk
right.
about eating. I just feel like, and throughout the season, I will, present my counter opinion about things. So sometimes I feel like Taurus is very over associated with
With
food
food.
and eating. And I don't know, I'm just cognizant of the ways that certain sort of like mainstream stereotypes don't really apply for everyone. And how do you navigate, like, if you might have an eating disorder, or
Yeah.
if you just, struggle with food in general, like,
Yeah.
how do you navigate Taurus? Is it only through food? Can you only be a Taurus if
Yeah.
you know
No,
time?
yeah. I definitely don't think that obviously like not everyone's just as obsessed with food or whatever, but I think that that really goes to show the way that they value their senses in general.
Mhm,
And that's
mhm.
something that we can discuss in the Taurus episode, which is the second episode for those of you wondering.
Yes,
Oh,
yes,
wait, third episode actually, because this is our
yeah,
first.
but two,
But
yeah.
yeah, like in that sense, I get it. But at the same time, yeah, not everyone is obsessed with food in that way.
Yeah, like I feel like I don't know, sometimes I feel like, can I really be part of the tourist community? I'm not like I enjoy food. I do enjoy like it's kind of what you're saying, like the sensory experience of food is very important to me. That's
Yeah,
why whenever I cook, like it's always has to be a whole thing. Like I have to have it to my liking. Like it has to
yeah,
like
very particular. Yeah,
right. It's a very like, you can't just eat just to eat.
yeah.
You
And
gotta eat.
I feel like another level of that is also what like pleasure. It's like eating food that makes you feel good and that you love the taste of, because like when you think of like the brain and how literally like orgasm and food can literally be associated like similarly in that way, it's like yeah, like I feel like it's for Tauruses it's definitely more about the pleasure, so if you're in a situation where um you might not have that relationship with food, it's not gonna be the same, and
Right.
that's also like another layer of another kind of Taurus or another like but yeah, I definitely think it's definitely the pleasure of like
Mhm.
food and what it
Mhm.
brings you like in this like in
Right.
the sense of taste and such.
So that's my Taurus spiel. For Sagittarius, I ended up deciding
Typical.
on Moon. And this is a song featuring Grace Jones and Thames. Um,
Mm.
it's a very upbeat song, and like the whole idea is like, you know, she's out with her girls and like they're the shit, right? And I think that that really, like, I have a bunch of Sag friends. My mom was a Sag. I just think I really like Sages, and it's definitely like my Aries stellium, I think. But I think it's also my juice, like being a Pisces rising
Yeah.
and like loving what they're about ultimately. And I feel like, and I think Gemini can be similar, a similar fun time. I think for me at least, and other people might describe it differently, but I think Geminis are a fun time, but I think they can be a little bit stressful, or like they can just be kind of like with all of
You're
their
mercurial.
right. It's just too much sometimes for me. Versus Sag, like they're a fun time, and I feel like it's not too much for me. But some people do feel like it's too much for them.
Definitely for some. I mean,
But
we're
I can
ruled
take
by
it.
Jupiter. Too
Yeah.
much is just what we are.
Yeah. And I'm like, you know what, that's fine. I'm too much too. So, but this energy is like very like out having fun. And then the other thing that made it uniquely Sag to me, I think Sages, one, I think they tend to be popular. And I feel like they tend to have a lot of people around them. Like they're not like, yes, they're independent and they'll like go off and do their things, but like they're always gonna find their people, and they're always gonna like, I feel like the way they gas up their people, like it's a, I think that's a Sag thing personally. But
Mhm.
like
I very much think it's a fire sign thing, like having fire sign friends.
right,
I feel like it's
But Aries and Leo, I feel like it's a little bit different.
yeah, it is. Yeah,
Like
I think so.
and I think Jupiter, and let's also, you know, in traditional astrology, Jupiter's joy is in the 11th house. And I think Jupiter at its best wants to be generous. It wants to have like everybody win kind of thing.
Yeah,
It
definitely.
doesn't want to hoard it. It's not just for them,
Hmm.
it's for everybody.
Yeah,
I think Sages are very much that energy of like, I want everybody around me to be at this level.
yeah,
So like when she says, I'm with my girls and we all need space, like I felt like that's what my Sag would say. Like my like, yeah, like we need space, like
yeah,
out here. So yeah. And
yeah.
then
Wait, I definitely speaking on that a little more. Like, I definitely think that is the case. Like, I don't know. I think that that's also one of those things where it's like people say this about Sag, but it's also like I've met some pretty introverted Sag
mm,
energy, but like who not is not necessarily like popular, but at the same time they still embody that energy of like when you are friends with them, they're like the most generous, like kind, like funny, like just like big personality person.
right,
But it's
yeah.
like it takes a second for them to get there. So I do think that it yeah, it manifests differently for people, but at the end of the day I do think that's like the basis. Yeah.
Right. And that's when it comes back to for me at least, like where is it in their chart? Because I have a Sag friend who their sun falls in their 12th house.
Mm.
So it's like, and they have like a cap stellium. So it's like, you know, you might not necessarily get that right away, but it's there. Like
Yeah.
that's how they, you know,
Express
when
it.
they're at their most comfortable, they're gonna show that element for you. And I think I saw a tweet the other day. It was like, if you're friends with a Sag, you know you're a bad bitch because that's all they only keep bad bitches around.
Literally.
It
That's
was
so
like,
funny.
okay, like I think this is the song for y'all. Okay, and then Pisces, and I'm only gonna do this one because I think it's getting long. Pisces. I struggle with Pisces actually. I don't know if there's a song that works perfectly for Pisces personally.
Yeah. I mean, she's a Virgo, so
Yeah,
that kind of
yeah.
makes some sense.
But I'm gonna go with classic off the sofa. I think Pisces Venus in particular, that's the placement that this song speaks to. I think you know, it's a love song. So that's why I think Pisces Venus in particular, but I think Pisces can do this in general, of like acceptance. Like the song is like a lot about you know, loving the way that they are themselves. Like she loves, I love the way you can't help. I love the way you can't help but be yourself. Can't help but be yourself around me, basically.
Oh yeah.
And like loving that you show up fully and authentically, loving that you wear your emotions on both of your sleeves. Like
Hmm.
it's like this very like I love all of you. Like it's not about parts of you. It's not about picking and choosing. And I think Pisces Venus being exalted in Pisces, when a planet is exalted in a particular sign, I feel like it's just easy for that planet to do, you know,
Naturally.
yeah, like it's easy in that sign, in that environment. It's like it's easy. There's not like a lot of caveats or something. It just comes to you. It's like it's kind of like your I've heard astrologers explain it like the domicile is like, okay, that's your home. The exaltation is like you are a special guest in a home. Like, so you don't have to do anything. All you do is just, sit in
Be
your
there
love.
and
Like,
thrive.
yeah. And so yeah, passive off the sofa, I feel like it kind of speaks to this like the ease, like how it should be to love someone, how easy it should be, accepting them, letting them be, embracing them being themselves and like sharing in that. So and
Yeah,
being
I love
vulnerable. I also recently in Plastic Off the Sofa, like the metaphor is like, or someone posed that the metaphor is more so like taking like being vulnerable, like
yeah. Yeah,
your
because like when you think about like how like in a lot of homes, I think that this is, I don't know, like in some ways they be putting the plastic on the sofa to protect it and like as a layer of
Mhm.
protection. So like the idea of like removing that and just being like your authentic self, like that's actually such a cool like concept, and like the way that her mind works baffles me because
Yes.
what a poet.
I mean, I don't know. There might have been someone else responsible for that, but
Yeah,
whoever,
yeah.
the way that her
There
team,
were 24 writers on the
whoever did it,
someone was onto something.
yeah, that was good. That was a good one.
Yeah. All right. Well, with that, we will wrap up our first episode of As Above.
So below, they're switching it
Thank
up a
you
little bit.
guys for joining us, and we will see you next week.
Yes, hopefully you'll join us next week, and hopefully this isn't a super long. But whoever made it to the end of this, thank you for staying with us. And
Thank you. Yeah. I
yeah,
hope you enjoyed the conversation.
I enjoyed it.
I enjoyed it.